Welcome back to the channel Red Dirt Designs. I painted this motorcycle years ago and the guy bought a box for this thing, so I need to match it to the rest of the bike. It's flat black right now, so I'm going to bring it in my shop and I figure I'd show you guys the painting process of matching this texture effect and putting some letters on the back. Hope you guys learned something new. Enjoy the video. Alright, this is the back box that we need to paint. This is what it looked like when you brought it in to me. So what I need to do is I need to take off some of these old letters and all these racks, the hinges, the seat, anything that'll be in the way of the paint job, so it'll be a much better paint job. We don't want to just mask everything off. We want to do this professionally. So we're taking everything apart that gets in the way. That way we can sand this whole area and it'll make a really good paint job that won't peel up on us later. Notice that I place all the bolts that came out of the hinges back into the hinges. That way we don't lose them and we know where they go, because there's different sizes and we don't want to mix these up. Alright, in order to remove vinyl decals, a lot of times all you got to do is apply some heat. This is a metal razor blade. I wouldn't recommend this if you don't plan on doing any other body work or anything. If you're just planning on peeling it back and painting it right after you've scuffed it and you don't want to have to do any body work, I'd use a plastic razor knife. I'll put a link to those in the description, and you do the exact same thing. You'd run heat on it and use a plastic one and use it, and that's a lot more delicate. I'm pretty good with the metal one, so I shouldn't do anything, but if I do, I'm okay with having to do a few little things here and there anyways. So that's what I'm going to do. The next step is there's a little bit of the adhesive left from the vinyl. You can remove this by just soaking a rag or just a paper towel in this instance with some paint thinner. This is just lacquer thinner in here. So I'm just going to take this, and you might have to let it soak, but you can just sit there and work at it, and eventually that adhesive will rub off once it softens the glue up a little bit. Next step we're going to do is we're just going to wipe this whole thing down with wax and grease remover, so any oils from our hands or any contaminants that might have gone on the surface doesn't get sanded into the paint job and causes issues later. Once we've prepped the surface, it's time to sand with the dual action sander. I'm using 400 grit sandpaper for this. There's a lot of hard to reach areas and contours and stuff that with the dual action sander you'd burn through the paint. I don't want to do that too much, because anywhere I do that I have to prime those areas and sand them before I base coat it. So what I'm going to try to do is stay away from those areas with the DA and then just go back over it with this red Scotch-Brite. I'll put a link down in the description to where you can get your own, and you just hit all them hard to reach areas, those curves. Anywhere you couldn't reach with the DA, where it was a little more dangerous, where you might burn through it. More flat surfaces are easy with the dual action sander. That's to speed up the process. So we're just going to hit this whole thing with the red Scotch-Brite, just make sure we have good toothing for the paint to stick to. And we're basically going to do the same thing that we did to this one, to this other half. And so I figured to save time on the video, I wouldn't show you every little thing on to do if I repeat the process. So I'm just going to repeat this and we'll be right back. prep surface is all scuffed, ready to go. We should be able to prime in a few areas. When you burn through your base coat, this is a factory flat black. We're just going to go, if you look, I burned through, that's primer underneath. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some primer and we're going to seal this off. What we want to do is we want to seal this off so it'll last, it'll look good. So I'm going to just prime. I only had a couple burn throughs. There's one here, here, and one or two on the back side. So this is some pro quality gray primer. I was going to use black primer, but the black primer, it wasn't, I don't know, I don't trust the quality of it as much. This is by Keystone. I used to work in a body shop and we used to get this all the time, so I highly recommend Keystone. I think it's pretty good primer in the can, but I'll put a link down in the description to a good primer that would work for this, because sometimes it's just a little easier when you just have a couple spots to not prime the whole area with a big prime gun. This is usually a lot better. So in this type of application, since it was already base coated and there wasn't much to do, this will work just fine, and I highly recommend it for speed of getting projects out the door and still have the quality. Coat number 2. Coat number 3. And when you finish with the primer can, you can just turn it upside down, spray until it quits spitting the paint. Okay, and then I usually take a little bit of lacquer thinner on a rag and wipe the tip, and that usually makes your spray paints last longer. Here I'm using a soft density interface pad. It's for a dual action sander, and then I place 400 grit sandpaper on the top of the interface pad. This will help ensure that we don't burn through as easily, and if you do, you just have to prime those areas again and repeat the process. The very last step is you want to hit it with red Scotch-Brite to make sure you got all the areas scuffed, that way the paint won't peel. We'll hit it with wax and grease remover one last time before we're ready to paint. After we've got the wax and grease remover done, use a tack cloth. This gets fuzzies and any dust particles that may have been left behind. Now we're ready to shoot our black base coat over the project. Once everything's smooth and we have no burn throughs. I'm going to try to do a nice even coat, a light coat for my first coat. And I'm going to place 3 coats of black paint on this, as long as that is enough to cover the surface. I'm going to be using my Cricut vinyl cutter to cut out the words that go on the back. If you don't have one, you may have to just get your own vinyl and cut it out by hand. This just speeds up the process for me. lettering turned out alright, but obviously I have a couple little things I need to fix. This blowout's easily wiped away with wax grease remover on the end of this rag. Now I just need to mask off the U, and I'll retouch up that. I'll place my Amazon affiliate link to these stencils in the description so you can get your own, because they do an awesome job. But this is how I did the texturing on that bike. So I need to blend them back, and I'm trying to make it look just like the bike did when I did it years ago. So I'm trying to make sure I kind of emulate those patterns. I have a picture on my phone and I'm using that as a reference. Here I'm going back over with a tack cloth because we're finished with the artwork and we're ready for clear coat. Here I want to make sure I do about 3 coats as well. I'm going to do 1 medium coat to start out so I don't run it, and then I go a little heavier with my last 2. Clear coat turned out pretty good. I just got a few dirt nibs that I need to get taken care of, so I'll sand those and buff those. I'll make a tutorial on how to sand and buff separate of this because it's a very lengthy process. When I get done with that, I'm going to put it all back together and it'll be ready to ship back to the customer.